In here, today we're diving into a topic that's as unsettling as it is crucial to understand the potential consequences of a global conflict. We're talking full-blown, world-altering war, the kind that reshapes maps, rewrites history, and leaves scars on humanity for generations. Because understanding the potential consequences of such a conflict isn't about succumbing to fear, it's about recognizing the stakes, promoting peace, and working to prevent such a catastrophe from ever happening. From economic collapse to environmental devastation, from mass displacement to the erosion of human rights, we'll confront the harsh realities of a world at war. Imagine a world where the global economy grinds to a halt, supply chains, the intricate networks that move goods across borders, crumble, markets crash, wiping out savings and investments overnight. Trade, the lifeblood of the global economy, slows to a trickle as nations prioritize their own survival. This isn't some dystopian fantasy, it's a very real possibility in a world consumed by war. The interconnectedness of the global economy, while a testament to human ingenuity, also makes it incredibly vulnerable. A conflict in one corner of the world can send shockwaves across the entire system. Think about the 2008 financial crisis. That was triggered by a collapse in the US housing market, yet it sent ripples of economic turmoil across the globe. Now, magnify that scenario exponentially, factoring in the widespread destruction and disruption of a world war. Businesses would shutter, unable to cope with the economic freefall. Unemployment would skyrocket, leaving millions without livelihoods. Governments, already strained by the demands of war, would struggle to provide a safety net for their citizens. And as economic hardship spreads, so too does social unrest. In a world at war, the fight for survival extends beyond the battlefield. With agricultural production disrupted and supply lines severed, food security becomes a major concern. The abundance we often take for granted, the overflowing supermarket shelves and readily available meals, could become a distant memory. Imagine relying on government-issued rations, your daily sustenance measured out in meager portions. The impact of these shortages would be felt most acutely by the most vulnerable populations: children, the elderly, and those already struggling with poverty. Malnutrition could become widespread, leading to a host of health problems and weakening the resilience of entire communities. The struggle for food could also exacerbate existing tensions and inequalities. War has a way of uprooting lives, forcing people to flee their homes in search of safety and security. Imagine being torn from your home, your community, everything you've ever known, forced to embark on a perilous journey into the unknown. This is the plight of refugees and internally displaced persons, a heartbreaking consequence of conflict that we see play out time and again throughout history. In a world engulfed by war, the scale of displacement would be staggering. Millions upon millions of people would be on the move, seeking refuge from violence and persecution. Borders would be overwhelmed, straining the resources of neighboring countries and international organizations. Even for those who managed to reach a safe haven, the scars of displacement, the loss of home and loved ones, would run deep. Chapter 4: Technological Advancements, a double-edged sword. War, for all its horrors, has a way of accelerating technological innovation. Throughout history, conflicts have spurred the development of new technologies, from the radio to the internet, often with the aim of gaining a strategic advantage. But these advancements, while impressive in their own right, come at a cost. Imagine a world where artificial intelligence controls weapon systems, making life or death decisions with lightning speed. Imagine drones darkening the skies, carrying out targeted strikes with surgical precision. These technologies, while potentially effective in a military context, raise profound ethical questions about the future of warfare and the very nature of humanity. The line between innovation and destruction, always thin, becomes razor thin in times of conflict. Chapter 5: Political Upheaval, a World in Flux. War has a way of reshaping the political landscape, toppling governments and redrawing borders. Imagine a world where existing alliances crumble and new ones are forged in the crucible of conflict. Imagine the rise of authoritarian regimes, capitalizing on fear and uncertainty to consolidate power. The balance of power could shift dramatically, with new superpowers emerging and old ones struggling to maintain their influence. International institutions, already strained by pre-existing tensions, could be rendered ineffective or even collapse entirely. The chaos and instability of war provide fertile ground for extremism and radical ideologies to take root. Chapter 6. Environmental damage, scars on the planet. War leaves its mark not only on human lives, but also on the planet we call home. Imagine landscapes scarred by bombs and littered with the debris of war. Modern warfare, with its reliance on heavy weaponry and indiscriminate destruction, takes a heavy toll on the environment. Toxic chemicals released during bombings can contaminate soil and water sources, poisoning wildlife and jeopardizing human health. The destruction of forests and other natural habitats disrupts ecosystems, leading to a loss of biodiversity and exacerbating the effects of climate change. The environmental damage caused by war is not just a matter of aesthetics, it's a threat to the very systems that sustain life on Earth. Chapter 7. Human Rights. Violations, a descent into darkness. War often brings out the worst in humanity, unleashing a torrent of violence and cruelty that targets the most vulnerable. Imagine a world where basic human rights are trampled upon, where civilians are caught in the crossfire, and where atrocities become commonplace. Civilians, often caught in the crossfire, bear the brunt of the violence, facing displacement, starvation, and the constant threat of death. War also creates an environment where human rights violations can flourish. Prisoners of war may be subjected to torture, civilians may be targeted based on their ethnicity or religion, and entire communities may be displaced or even wiped out. The pursuit of victory, no matter the cost, can lead to a dangerous erosion of moral boundaries and a descent into barbarity. Chapter 8. Psychological impact, the unseen wounds. The wounds of war run deep, leaving invisible scars on the psyches of those who have witnessed its horrors. Imagine living with the constant fear of death, the trauma of witnessing unimaginable violence, and the guilt of surviving when others did not. Post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and survivor's guilt are just some of the mental health challenges that soldiers and civilians alike may face in the aftermath of war. These invisible wounds can have a profound impact on individuals, families, and entire communities. Children, especially vulnerable to the psychological trauma of war, may exhibit developmental delays, behavioral problems, and difficulty forming healthy relationships. The psychological toll of war is a stark reminder that the human cost of conflict extends far beyond the battlefield. Chapter 9. Cultural shifts, reshaping identities. War, in its upheaval and destruction, can reshape cultural landscapes, altering traditions, beliefs, and the very fabric of societies. Imagine a world where cultural heritage sites are reduced to rubble, where artistic expressions are stifled by censorship, and where the collective memory of a people is fragmented by conflict. War can lead to the destruction of cultural artifacts, monuments, and religious sites, erasing tangible links to the past and undermining a sense of shared identity. Libraries, museums, and archives, repositories of knowledge and history can be targeted, resulting in the irreplaceable loss of cultural heritage. The displacement of populations also contributes to cultural fragmentation. As people flee their homes, they carry their traditions and customs with them, but the process of adapting to a new environment can lead to the erosion or transformation of these cultural practices. Chapter 10. Post-war reconstruction, rebuilding from the ashes. The guns may fall silent, but the echoes of war reverberate long after the last shot is fired. Imagine a world grappling with the monumental task of rebuilding shattered infrastructure, healing divided societies, and confronting the enduring legacy of conflict. Beneath the surface lie the deeper wounds of trauma, loss, and mistrust that can take generations to heal. Rebuilding shattered infrastructure is a daunting but essential task. Homes, schools, hospitals, roads, and communication networks all need to be rebuilt or repaired. But the challenge of rebuilding goes beyond bricks and mortar. It's about healing divided societies, fostering reconciliation, and addressing the root causes of conflict to prevent its recurrence. Outro, a call to action, choosing a different path. So, there you have it. 10 shocking, sobering and deeply unsettling conditions that could very well define our world in the event of another global conflict. From economic collapse to environmental devastation, from mass displacement to the erosion of human rights, the potential consequences of war are as vast as they are terrifying. But here's the thing. Understanding these potential consequences isn't about giving in to fear or succumbing to despair. It's about recognizing the stakes, acknowledging the very real dangers that exist, and using that knowledge to fuel our commitment to peace. We can choose the path of conflict with all its attendant horrors, or we can choose the path of diplomacy, cooperation and understanding,